that time of the year, the first time that we get to see Gus and Gal's New South Wales teams. Gal, we're starting with you tonight. As your 17 goes up, what was the hardest decision to make here?
Probably leaving Latrell Mitchell out and also edge-back rowers. There's not a lot of edge-back rowers at the moment. Boyd Cordner hasn't been playing all year. Stephen Crichton was... Crichton was suspended on the weekend. Victor Radley now also out. So I think, certainly leaving Latrell out was tough. And I've got to say also, though, had there been any question marks over Josh Addo-Carr's fitness or his form, I could easily have put Burton in the centres and put Tom Trbojevic on the wing because that backline of Penrith is absolutely on fire at the moment. But that's the team at the moment that I've picked. Liam Martin on the bench, come on, he can play on an edge. I've picked Isaiah Yeo on an edge, on the left edge, because of that combination with Cleary and obviously Stephen Crichton. And then Liam Martin can come on and play on an edge and push him to the middle if he needs to go to the middle. That's the way I picked it.
Gal, no Cameron Murray?
Cameron Murray, the reason he go, obviously the troll, he's been out for 3 weeks, come back on the weekend, they had 50 put on him, so that's why I didn't go him. Cam Murray is also out injured. I don't know whether he's going to be back.
He's 50-50 of playing this week.
Well, 50-50 playing this week doesn't... unless he plays and plays well this week, I probably couldn't have picked him.
The Blues rate him highly.
Yeah, so do I. He's an outstanding player. I really do rate him highly, and I would have him in the team if he was fit and healthy, but... Is he going to be fit and healthy? It's a big if. I mean, 50-50 to play this week and then be right for an Origin game after not playing for 3 or 4 weeks is a big ask.
If Ryan Pappenhausen was fit for game 1, would you have had him in there somewhere?
Yeah, he would have probably been my 14, particularly the way Jack Whiten's not going too bad himself, but the Canberra aren't going any good at the moment. The other player I was pretty close to putting in there was Wade Graham as the 14 because he was played that position before, come on a couple of years ago, played at 5'8", played a really good game. You put him in the back somewhere, you can put him in the back row if you need to. So here's the other one I was pretty close to picking, but I think Jack Whiten deserves his spot in the side. But Pappy, he just hasn't played enough footy for me over the past 5 or 6 weeks.
Yeah, Melbourne are actually quite worried about him. He's still got some tests to get through. I spoke to Melbourne today. That they are concerned for his health, and he won't play this week from all accounts. Yep. And going forward, they just want to really watch him. And I wouldn't be expecting him to be rushed into Origin contention. So,
okay. Well, we've got Nicho Hines there. He's flying at the moment. Gus, for you, you're 17 for the MCG. I noticed that your backline with Gal, other than the centres in different jerseys.
This is an outrage.
It's exactly the same.
This is an outrage.
I don't like it when you guys agree on things.
Well, mate, it's almost man for man, bar the 9. This is an outrage, Gus.
Right, now, my team. A couple of factors. Number one, we're coming off a losing series, right, against a team, what was it, Gal, the worst Queensland team in history, you were saying?
Well, yeah.
Right, so we're coming off a losing series. Number two, I picked it on form. So if form was going to count for anything, looking at the players who are going best in the competition at the moment. I agree with Gal, we've got a shortage of back rowers because some experienced ones are gone, but it gives us a chance to blood some young fellas in the New South Wales team. I'm not saying this is a winning Blues team, I'm saying this is the one with the deserved players in the side. All right, so the most controversial ones, I've got Crichton, the young fella from Penrith in the centres, I've got young Brian too, making his debut, Luai and Cleary as the halves. I've got Tarek Sims, just because of his experience and we're short of back rowers. I think Liam Martin deserves a spot. I think he's perfect for Origin football. The other one was Api Coruscant at 9 rather than Damien Cook. I just find it hard to pick anyone out of that South Sydney side at the moment. There's something going wrong there. They've been beaten by 50 in their last few performances and I just can't work out what's going on. And I don't think Damien... I love Damien as a player. I love him as a bloke, but he's just not playing well enough. And Coruscant, with his link with Cleary and Luai, could really be the difference in that team. On the bench, Jake Trbojevic. Now, if you asked me after the first month I'd be picking Jake, I would have said no. But since his brothers got back, everything's turned around and that combination might be important. I was very close to picking Tom at fullback. Very, very close. Because sometimes I think the best player in the game's got to play his best position. Wow. And right at the moment... he's probably the marquee player of the game. But I went back to a game a couple of years ago where he came in and played in the centres and roamed around the field in the middle of the field, playing as a second fullback and had an extraordinary game in a big win for the Blues. So I elected to put him in the centres, you know, for sake of another option. But I think there's some youngsters here that just show sheer performance, particularly the young Panthers, deserve their spot. And there's some others that probably didn't get the job done last year that need to pay the penalty and bring some other fellas in that are in good form.
Gus, I'm fascinated that both you and Gal have gone like Crichton's a very good player, but you both left Latrell out. He'll be one of the first players I'd pick. What's the thinking?
What position?
I'd have him in the centres.
Well, he's not playing there at the moment. He's playing fullback.
But he was a very good
But
centre.
he hasn't played a lot of footy. The only reason I left him out was because he hadn't played the last 3 weeks. He came back on the weekend and his team had 50 points put on him.
Yeah.
Now, that's not all his fault, but I'm thinking, OK, well, he hasn't played for 3 weeks. He's just been beaten in the side by 50 points. And I said in my column today, unless he goes out as a blinder this week and demands being picked, that's the only reason I haven't picked him.
Interesting.
And he didn't play for the back half of last season either. Yeah, look, it's a difficult one, but he wants to be a fullback, and that's where he's going to be judged at the moment.
Do you think we should expect any surprises from Brad?
Oh, yeah.
When it comes to the New
I've
South
been getting
Wales?
surprised by him all my life.
Yeah.
I wouldn't surprise. Like I know Tarek Sims. Tyson Frizzell has been playing that well at club level, but I didn't think he played that good at club level last year. But I thought he had a really good series last year. I thought he turned up, so that's why I picked him. Wade Graham's one that now comes right back into contention because the edge back rows are injured. And he's got that versatility about him as well, so he could possibly be a 14. And I know Freddie likes him, so that wouldn't surprise me that he popped up as well.
Tell me this, Gal. Like you picked Yeo at left because he has played left back row, he has played edge back row, but his greatest form has been in the middle. All right, so we're obviously short a left back rower, and I've gone for Tarek Sims because he's probably the only specialist that I could find left in the competition. But one bloke that I would play at left back row is Jack Whiten, even though he may not have played there before. But simply the way the game's being refereed now, the way the game's being played, another playmaker, he's strong, direct, he's a really good defender. He plays left edge anyway. What's it really matter if he's one in or one out? It doesn't matter.
Yeah, well,
so I could play Jack Whiten left edge really easily.
Yeah, well, I got him as my 14 because he can play anywhere on the field. And when I say anywhere on the field, I mean in the forwards, backs, wherever you want him.
And Luai has been doubly trained as a hooker too. He can handle dummy half if something happened to the hooker on the day.
It's time now to delve a little further north of the border, and Darren Lockyer joins us tonight. Great to see you, Lockie.
Evening, Brace and gents.
Time to pick your brain. Now, you are a selector, of course, in the Queensland Rugby League system, so I'm assuming the team that we're about to show on the screen is what Paul Green will be unveiling early next week.
100%, Brace. You've nailed it, mate. That is how we will run out 1 to 17.
So this is your side. Well, this is what you're giving us tonight, at least something to play with. What's the angle here, Lockie? When you're putting this team together, are you trying to hide something from us, or are you putting the obvious up there?
No, well, I think in the current climate, I think things change very quickly. It happens with Origin anyway, but with the way things are at the moment, whether suspension or injuries, the teams change regularly. So, look, I think if you look at the way the game's been played, the way it's been officiated, you've got to have flexibility. Origin, I believe talent is secondary. It's about character. So that's your primary reason for picking a player. But if they've got talent, well, that's a bonus. But at the same time, with the way the game's been played at the moment and officiated, you need to have some flexibility because you've got HIA, you've got the real potential that someone's going to be in the bin at some point in time in the game.
Darren, is that the best team Queensland have had in 41 years? It looks like a pretty good side to me.
What does Gal think?
Listen, last year was what you call an anomaly. I think it's an anomaly. Is that the word? Where it's a freak? Yeah, that was just a freak thing that happened. 1 in a row, Lockie, 1 in a row. Don't forget that. Okay, remember that.
I think for a little while now, we've always been a bit light on with middle forwards. And, with Josh down at Canberra getting suspended, that doesn't help. Ideally, you want back rowers that can go 80 minutes. David Fafita is obviously an explosive player, but whether he can go 80 at Origin, well, that's yet to be seen. So then you can rotate your front rowers. So for us, just Jai Arrow, Jaden Stewart plays on an edge. I think the key for us is having, men that can play in the middle, that can play long minutes, because that's what required at Origin. I always think that the middle of the field is the key to winning Origin games. So, from our perspective, we're a bit light on there, but we just need to know that the guys we've got are willing to sort of, dig themselves in and fight.
Like, when you pick guys that are unable to play this week, there's question marks over guys like Kalen Ponga and Harry Grant. If they're unable to play this week, will you still pick them? And I know it's also on your bench. You've got Harry Grant and AJ Brimson, a couple of smaller guys. What's your thought process there?
Again, Gal, this will be the 1 to 17 next week. But look, I think, again, flexibility is key. So, you know, if you get a HIA to an outside back, you've got to make sure you've got that covered. Now, Kurt Catewell is, you know, he's valuable because of his utility. But at the same time, like if someone goes down on the wing or a fullback, then you've got Brimson there. But I think Harry Grant, on the back of not playing a lot of football of late, I don't think he could play at the moment 80 minutes of Origin. So, you know, last year he came on, he was the difference. He was the game breaker in Game 3. You know, when he came off the bench, he just had that spark about him when the game had the edge taken off it. So I think that's something you need to retain that. But that means 2 small men on the bench. So I think if the big guys are willing to put their hand up and say they can play some long minutes, then having 2 guys on the bench isn't a big issue.
Lockyer, if Cameron Munster isn't fit and Kalen Ponga is Ponga your 5'8"?
Yeah, look, I think that's another option. I think, you know, Brimson's been playing football and he's going good at the Titans there. But Ponga, you know, he's a talent. And I remember we were hesitant when he made his debut. I think he had to come on early in the middle of the field. And he withstood all the pressure that came with that role, playing in the middle of the field. It was an amazing debut. So he's capable, but again, at the same time, like, there's not a lot of match fitness there for Kalen, and to put him up in the front line, it would be a huge challenge, but it might be just that might be where we end up. But Brimson's always going to be a running fullback. He's the type of fullback, not, you know, I guess a little bit similar to Tedesco, where he'll just be around the ball and he's a runner. So he's a danger when he's on the field, and if you've got a bit of momentum, he can make something happen.
Got the feeling the Ducks and Drakes have kicked off well and truly tonight. Lockyer, appreciate your time. We'll let you get out of the chook shed and back to the family.
Thanks, guys. I wonder if you could hear him in the background. I could.
Is that corrugated iron or is that a curtain? It dead set looks like corrugated
That's
iron.
a curtain, mate. They're running around in the back here. I need to go.
All right, Lockyer, good stuff. Thanks as always.
All right, see you guys. Bye.
Like a Cheshire cat too, isn't he? The Queenslander on the back of a series win last year.
If that's 1 to 17, if that's 1 to 17 in that order, I'll walk home from here.
And it's a long way too.
Oh, mate.
Gus, you're very, very, very quiet. Isn't it?
Gus doesn't care about the Queensland. And I love that attitude.
What I will say about Queensland sides, and that's why I said leading into Game 3 last year, they were a very good chance of winning. When Queensland sides have their key playmakers in the right positions and everyone else just works hard around them, I've still got to keep coming back to Daly, Cherry Evans and Munster as the key to this Queensland side. Everyone else will just be a soldier on the night. Those 2 are game managers and they're game breakers. They're game winners. And that's why I thought they were a real chance of winning last year's series, even though people wrote them off. And it's ended up that's what's happening. And they're a chance with any other players in that team, provided that 7 and 6 can stay together. They're a chance of beating New South Wales. Now, if the New South Wales has picked on form, you're going to have some rookies and some young blokes in there that haven't experienced this before. Not going to be an easy series for New South Wales.
There's one big out though, Gus. Wayne Bennett.
Sorry?
Wayne Bennett's a big out for Queensland.
Yeah, it is. It's a big out.
Papa Lee's big out too. He's plenty of experience. He's been there before.